Hello and welcome to Our Town. I'm Chris Lon and I'm the production coordinator here at Norfolk Community Television. I'm filling in as a guest host for Jill Hindley Lawrence. She was kind enough to let me do that. And today I am sitting with Bonnie O'Connell, who is the music teacher and technology teacher at H. Olive Day School. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So tell me a little bit about your background, how you got started with teaching originally.
Well, I started out, and I'm a University of Massachusetts graduate, and I graduated in 1980 with a degree in music. I actually started school not sure whether I wanted to be a doctor or go into education.
Oh, wow.
And the more I got into the music, I did love my band experiences and chorus experience and all of those. And as time went on, I started out with both majors, and I got into the music and loved that. And so I continued on. And in spite of the fact that Prop 2.5 came into effect the year I graduated from college, I was lucky enough to get a job in Walpole, which is where I grew up. And for the first 5 years, I taught in Walpole, and then I was able to acquire a job over here. My job had been cut to half-time in Walpole, and that's where I've been ever since 1985.
Nice. So tell me a little bit about Prop 2.5. What exactly was that?
Prop 2.5 was it's putting a cap on local taxes.
Okay.
So they can only, and I'm not sure how to quote the bill enough.
Yeah.
I believe you can't go up with more than 2.5% of last year's taxes without an override.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, and throughout the first 16 years of my teaching career, when I taught music, the arts were very much in danger.
Yeah.
And the only reason that they kept them a lot of times is because teachers' contracts did say that they get so much planning time, and there wasn't another way to give that planning time without them.
Makes sense.
But they definitely, it impacted very strongly lots and lots of music and art programs and things like that. And so they just, but I've been very lucky to be here because I've been able to maintain that position, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Definitely, yeah. And I was actually a personal graduate
of
Freeman Centennial School, and I, was one of your students a long time ago. I don't want to say how long ago, but I really enjoyed that experience, and and I was wondering, what your feelings were about, those years at Freeman Centennial. Do you have any favorite memories? Or
I do. One you had mentioned earlier that we did that the piece that we had some incredibly, your class especially, had incredibly gifted and talented children in it. I had our accompanist at the time was a student, and she'd been accompanying those choruses since she was in 3rd grade.
Yeah, who was that?
Linda Bolden.
Linda Bolden, yeah,
It's now Linda Bent, I believe.
Yeah.
And, we just had this incredible, group of children. And for all of you to take it, the way you did.
Yeah.
And I believe at, what was the name of the piece we did? I'm having a blank.
It was Joyful, Joyful?
Yeah. And it was from Sister Act 2.
Yeah.
I think you all challenged me. I told you if you could dance and sing like they did in the movie, that I would go ahead and wear the whole nun's outfit.
That's right. We did challenge that.
You did rise to the challenge, so I did, with the help of my colleagues, come up with the other. And those kinds of things were really great. When I was hired in Norfolk, the superintendent at the time, Dr. Delmonico, in the interview asked, is there any reason why all children can't sing? And of course the answer is no. And it was a time that they could, classroom teachers are desperate for not only planning time individually, but planning time as a group. And that whole, camaraderie kind of thing. And so that's where we developed the whole concept of you all were required to be in chorus through 6th grade.
Yeah.
But except for the initial shock for 6th graders at the time when I came, it not only worked out well, your promotion exercise was a concert, and at the time our younger kids, we just had a whole growth program going in there. But for kids that wanted more of a selective elective group, we also developed a special choir that they could meet after school. So, I was blessed with having a colleague, Kathy Moen, who actually her master's was in choral conducting. And so as we were choosing music, we were able to challenge you all to do good 2 and 3 part singing.
Yeah, I remember,
and
harmonizing.
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then when Kathy moved to taking on a high school job in Norwood, that's when the whole opportunity came for me to take on technology. And so we had developed a pretty strong music program at the time, so it was time for another challenge.
Yeah, definitely. So once you tell me about your move from music to technology. What was that transition like? And
well, it was obviously, it started out, I thought, very differently, because I now no longer had you individually. I was now in a team situation with every classroom teacher, which worked out really well because we used that as professional development time. So if a teacher wasn't comfortable with doing something, especially with the activities we did with children, there's a certain amount of time that you give the 5 minutes of instruction, but then you've got to leave them alone. Be it a word processing exercise, even when we get into things like editing iMovie and that kind of thing, we had the teach the teacher model. So if a child was having a difficulty with one thing, I knew that I didn't know it all. I knew it, especially at those levels. Kids could help a lot.
Yeah.
And we'd be easily able to say, I'm not sure how to do this. Can somebody show us? And that was a whole different model. And to see kids on a different level than in music. Music,
Yeah.
it was there was a level of music that I think everybody can enjoy. When you throw the academic piece in there, sometimes for different people, that whole differentiated instruction, so to bring everybody to that comfort level was, including the staff,
Yeah.
because it was new to everybody. And so I think what we tried to work hard at doing, especially in those early years, was how do you make it accessible to everyone? I can remember one of the greatest leaders in technology in this district is Linda Balfour.
Yeah.
She would tell you herself that she was low tech, which is not really true. That's her humbleness coming out. But she would encourage in every different way. And when we started with email, it was, slowly we'd put the daily notices out or the weekly notices out via email. It started out with little paper to help as the backup copy if you're still having a little problem. So timely, we didn't do things in a timely manner in the initial stage. When I say
Yeah.
timely, I mean if she wanted the word out, she didn't expect you to be reading your email immediately as habit.
Yeah,
But
that makes sense.
it was a gentle process, but I think it was a process that it was very well handled, to the point where by the time it was back in 2008, 2010 at this point, but I was able to, I had a couple of teachers who had gotten some of the initial state grants in technology, Ann McKenzie and Donna Anderson, and they had acquired some of these state grants, and they wanted to do another one. And I said, nothing's coming across my desk except this one Hewlett-Packard grant. The next thing I know is they have a project, and Donna had a project and an initial team of teachers, and so 5 teachers got a national grant, and we were one of I think there were 2,000 schools that applied, and we were only one of like 70 schools that got it.
Wow.
And you were able to get a second year if you wanted to bring on an additional team. So we had such comfort at the HLF Day School with not necessarily independent technology users, but the ability to work together. So I could just walk down the hall. Hey, we have the opportunity to have another dozen people on this team. Would you like to join us? And they're like, sure. And it's just such a great team.
Yeah.
That we were able to get that second year out of it. So that was a lot of fun.
That's really awesome.
So we were pleased with that. And then
so what is the timeline? Because I think you said you started in Norfolk at 85, and then your last year teaching at Freeman Centennial was 95.
Right.
Wow.
And it wasn't, that was my last year teaching music.
Sorry.
And then I switched back into computers. Okay. And, you know, we've seemed to have had, we have this phenomenal school system, but we seem to rotate through superintendents like it's going out of style. Where Rentham and Plainville has had just a few. You know, I think in my career, we've had 7 or 8.
Oh, wow.
And we had an acting superintendent that decided that we didn't need as much support in technology. And so she had the similar feeling about special ed. But the bottom line was they decided to take another direction. So I found myself back teaching music. I think this is my 4th year back. But I do some technology as well. And it's been a lot of fun to get back into it because, again, you know, there's technology is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
However, it's not the same as singing and dancing, you know, and those the kinds of things that you can do in the music, and it's also a difference between, you know, always working together and always having some independent stuff too. So that's been a nice change back, and I think it's one of the things you don't want to get into is a total rut when you're doing things. So it was good to have the change when I did. It was good to change back, and this is going to be another change year because I'm retiring at the end of June.
Oh, wow.
So.
Well, yeah. I mean, congratulations
on
that. Yeah, definitely.
So
what has it been like working at HLF Day? I mean, do you notice any differences between the schools?
Well, well, obviously because you're working K through 2 and 3 through 6, and the kids are different. But, you know, I think if I were to say one of the biggest influences in my life, as well as one of the most incredible people to work with, is Linda Balfour. You know, the leadership quality that she instills every single day are just amazing. You know, her standards are super high. When I first arrived in Norfolk, I don't think I was here 2 weeks, so I'm still learning all your names. I mean, I have 600 kids, 500 kids sitting in front of me at the time, which, by the way, we have double that now.
Yeah.
But, you know, I had all these kids, and I'm learning their names, and Linda at the time was the special ed director. And one of the standard things that's required by law now is that we're required within a certain amount of time to read all the IEPs of all the kids that we teach. And for a specialist, that's a lot of IEPs.
That is a lot of IEPs.
And, but for Linda, as the special ed director, she went through every class list with me and every child and expectations. We had children at that point, we had some that had some real physical issues. And so I asked, you know, in 3rd grade we were teaching recorder, and what can I expect? And how do you differentiate that instruction? And her, you know, immediate answer is always, we set the bar high and then we'll make the adjustments if really needed. But one of the things I noticed right from the get-go is I would never have known the names that she told me about on the list. And again, at that time, that was 30 years ago. That wasn't required.
Yeah.
It was just standard that everybody needed to understand where all these kids were coming from. But these are the kids on the caseload, and if things needed to make adjustments, we made adjustments, and she wanted to make clear where the resources were that I could access.
Wow.
And I'd never had, you know, somebody seek me out like that in earlier years. You kind of like fly in, fly out, And although my experiences in Walpole were fabulous, I just never had that kind of. And she's taught me so much about differentiating instruction and how do you really get the best out of kids. But then as I've had the opportunity to work with her, we had a few summers that we had technology directors leave. So I became the acting technology director, which is like so out of, I'm not the network person, but I learned to do all that and learn to work with people and hire, what you need to hire, et cetera. But working with her on the admin level too, you just realized how an incredible problem solver she is, what she's able to do in terms of just inspiring people.
Yeah.
And I think that the team I work with of teachers at H. Holiday, and when I get to work at Freeman too, we have a group of educators here that are just pretty incredible.
Yeah.
They're dedicated. They were doing things well beyond, well before they were fashionable to do.
Yeah.
I can remember during those first technology years, some of the special projects were written in the national standards books years later. But they were doing, like some of our teams of teaching graphing through, at the time it was AppleWorks, but what would be Excel now. And, it's an M&M project, which is a pretty standard project for graphing exercises and things like that. Taking surveys and putting those on graphs and teaching all that stuff to kids. These were all things our teachers were doing long before it was the thing to do.
Wow.
And as I look back, and the reason I get to know is I do go to conferences. I've been active in the music world and I've been active in the technology world. When you're alone in a system like this in your job, you need to in order to figure out where you're going to go.
Yeah, definitely.
And you'd have the opportunity to see this project that was being in a workshop, thinking it was innovative, and it was like, wow, so-and-so's been doing that in their classroom for 5 years.
Yeah.
And so it was, and I'd get a lot of thrill going back and telling them. And we eventually get some people to start doing workshops because they were good at what they do.
Yeah.
And I think the only, I don't know that some of those people ever knew how good they were, because we've had some pretty exciting things go on. And watching it in both the music world and, and the technology world has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Yeah.
So what are some of the examples of techniques of maybe different learning styles, or was there a moment where that kind of clicked for you, where you really felt like you reached someone? Or?
Well, I think the big thing for me, of course, when you're teaching music, I'd always been the music teacher that I would much rather have been somebody else's assistant and put them in front of the podium. I never got I got more thrill out of teaching the stuff than I did the actual being the performing. I've never been the great performer. However, when I moved to technology, you need to be able to say, I don't know, but let's figure that out together. And not always being the expert. And I guess one of my big aha moments was when we did some of our either iMovie projects or iPhoto projects or things with kids. I'd say I could just say out to any class, and it wasn't always the theoretically most intelligent child in the room or the most gifted or those kids that sometimes you need to go over and make sure you haven't lost them because they don't talk to you as comfortably as other children or whatever. When I'd say things like, okay, I have to admit to you, I've just been asked this question. Can anybody figure out how to do this for me? Because I'm just not getting anywhere with it. And when they can figure it out, it is so exciting to watch. And in the computer lab, we had this piece of software where the teacher station could take over all the workstations. Mm-hmm. And we actually didn't have over all the projectors and things we have now. And so they were thrilled to be able, and I think it threw them a little bit at first. I'd give up my chair as long as you'll teach it. And my only thing that I'd say to them was, if they taught it to everybody, I'd say, okay, you need to give us step by step. So, and I'd have to teach them how to break it up. And I said, this is exactly what I've learned to do as a teacher. We can't give you 10 steps at a time.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. And they're like, oh. So I said, you know what? Being a teacher means I need to be a good student too. Thank you for teaching me that. And so that was a lot of fun when they'd have those aha moments, because then they'd go, and then as they walked around, would you mind going and showing so-and-so how to do this? And it's like, but you need to use your words and not touch their mouse or keyboard.
Yeah.
And so that was really good, and being able to share out that ability, because we're not the experts. You guys are the generation of, you're the electric generation. I will tell you, you graduated from high school with my son, and Brian will be the first one to tell you that he got me through my logo program. That whole programming stuff, well, he's now a mechanical engineer, so it's like,
Yeah.
all right, yeah. But it just was not something that came easily or naturally for me. And I'm also not a player. I'm not a big video game player.
Yeah.
So I just, I can't just, I need to know the steps. And so I can learn something to teach it, but I wasn't as comfortable you wouldn't just find me sitting around. And the other side of that coin is, when I did my master's in integrating computers, I had, actually Brian started as a third grader. So we had an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
Wow.
So those were, that was so when I got home, I had enough time to do my homework, but to sit and just play on my computer.
No, yeah.
It was not an option at the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I see that.
So that was, but that's been some of the best things, because they do have aha moments. And even when I get back into music, we had a huge choral library that we still have. And I looked back at some of it, and some of it I've used quite a bit of it actually with our second graders. And my predecessor had taken her smaller groups to the State House. And some parents had said to me, oh, you going to the State House? Well, my chorus was the entire second grade, not 15 of them.
Yeah.
But I decided to contact Senator Ross's office, and they said, sure, well, we've had groups that big. And so we did take a chance on doing it, and we did it. And so we'll be going for our third year. This year, Representative Dooley has set it up for us. And so we're going, to the State House with the second grade, and they get to sing on the grand staircase there. And we also had Mrs. McKenzie, who you said was your second grade teacher.
Yeah.
She's another one of my incredible colleagues. She said to me after that first year of having redeveloped these choruses, another teacher that used to do a lot with theater and actually does some in our after-school program is Mrs. Beasy. And so they used to do large-scale, grade-level plays. And that's how we decided to try, and we found a theater group out in the Midwest that not waters down, but rewrites musicals. And so that's how we started doing The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
And so that's been in production, and we've decided to do it as an annual project, because there's such a cost. Not only do you have to pay royalties on doing it, it's not a lot, but once you get in the costumes and everything else, to start adding the costumes and the scenery and everything else. So to do a new one every year would be rather costly.
Yeah.
So we've built on that, and it's been a lot of fun. And right now I've got all these very excited second graders around me, because the parts have been assigned and rehearsals are underway, and every child has a speaking part in the play.
Oh, that's great.
And we do, all the music, so that'll be part of their end. And then of course we have a first grade production that's coming up, and I prep the kids in kindergarten for a good chunk of their memory show.
Yeah.
So, and then their teachers take over towards the end. So,
yeah, The Wizard of Oz is actually one of the things that we film annually.
Yes.
Yeah, and it goes up on our YouTube page.
And we're very, very thrilled with that.
Yeah.
We're very thankful for that, because the kids love seeing it. So we just are, you've actually filmed a lot of stuff for us, and we're very thankful for that.
Yeah, we love doing it. It's always nice to go down there. I'm always I'm impressed at the different types of unique and interesting activities they have for kids. You know, they have the mind, body, spirit. You
Yeah.
know, and that's was really great. That we just did the 100th day of school recently. I can't believe it's already the 100th day of school for this year.
We've actually, it is just mind-boggling when we almost had a snow day on Monday and now the snow's completely gone.
I know, it's been,
You know,
it's been nuts.
welcome to New England, but yeah, it has truly flown by. But every year flies by like that. I don't know if we talk about whether it's our age or thankfully the younger teachers bring it down and say, no, nope, it just does fly.
Yeah. And one last question. Do you have any hopes or goals, you know, for your last year? Is there anything that you're kind of like working on or just looking forward to, or?
We have, we are doing all of our productions that we've done, and I hope to have, you know, if there's one thing that I'd love that, you know, people remembered, we have a good foundation that we've laid for both technology and music.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that we're extremely proud of our culture of singing. I think you've been over there and heard some of the stuff that we have coming out of little kids, and they are very, very proud of being great performers and great singers. But, you know, and we also bring up the analogy. It's like, you know, they'll hear people losing their voices and things like that. And it's like, yeah. As a matter of fact, the first year I started back to teaching music, they discovered vocal polyps. So I had to have them removed, and I really wasn't hitting notes.
Wow.
And and my speech therapist was a former opera singer. And so for these kids to learn that, you know, you do need to, whether or not you go into music, using your voice, and how do you use that voice, and how do you get what you need to get with that,
And communicate.
and communicate, and that kind of thing. And, you know, we just taught them a silly warm-up. The lips, the teeth, the tip of the tongue articulate the words to be sung. You know,
Yeah.
and it's to understand every word they're saying.
Yeah.
And that's it's pretty exciting when they, just watching them come in with excitement every day is great. And I will say that's one thing that I'll have to come visit, because I definitely miss that.
Yeah.
They just keep you moving and just keep you happy.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It was really nice
Such an honor
talking
to
to
be
you.
asked. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
And I wish you the best in your
Oh,
last year.
thank you very
and
much.
definitely come back anytime, visit the station.
Oh, thanks.
You know.
This is very beautiful.
Thank
We've
you.
watched you all evolve over these years too. Like I said, the first studio is a classroom next to my music classroom at the Freeman Kennedy School.
Wow.
So, wait, no, I'm sorry. It wasn't the Freeman Kennedy at the time. It was the Freeman Centennial.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, I would like
Excellent.
to thank everyone for watching and accepting me as your guest host on this edition of Our Town. Stay tuned for future episodes, and have a great day.